What's going on with you guys? Another installment to the series, Keys to Success. In this video right here, speaking on compromise and why anybody who's endeavoring to be successful should avoid it. Now, let me first off, let me go ahead and explain the difference between compromising and negotiation, because negotiation is definitely a very important tool to have in your arsenal if you want to be successful. You can't always have it 100% your way. You're going to have different beliefs, different ideologies that you have to go to toe with, and a lot of times to come to a solution that's beneficial to the both of y'all, or at least at the very least not be detrimental to yourself or your company. You're going to have to be negotiable. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have those negotiating skills, and that's one of the main reasons why the first video I made in this series, persuasion is such an important tool in your arsenal. You have to persuade people to work with you. You have to persuade people to at least accept the way that you want to do it, at least halfway. You know, you're going to have to use persuasion. So don't get it twisted. Negotiation is definitely a very important tool to have in your arsenal. It's a mandatory tool to have, but you do not compromise. Now let me explain what compromising is. Compromising is, now first off, let me say this for people that didn't know, and I'm going to make a video detailing this later on in the near future, but just a quick and dirty, as a man or a woman that's evolved from a boy and a girl, or just a male and a female, one of the main things that helps separate you from just being a male or just being a female is standing on certain principles that you establish as you mature. Now, certain principles and rules and things like that are universal. There are certain things that nobody who professes to be a man should be doing, and there are certain things that anybody who professes to be a man should be doing. And same goes for women. But we all have certain principles. We all have certain ideologies that help individualize us and help characterize us and keep us differentiated from the rest of the population. And whatever those principles may be, so long as it's not breaking the rules and regulations of a man or breaking the rules and regulations of being a woman, they're acceptable and you can live by them. Now, with all that being said, once you establish certain principles, or they're just principles that just go against just the universal code of manhood and or womanhood, once you go against those principles to basically satisfy somebody else, or just to make sure you don't go broke, or make sure you're out of harm's way, you've compromised. That's what compromising is. Negotiation is coming to an agreement for what's the best for you, for the best for your company, so forth and so forth, your associates, your acquaintances, your friends, family, whatever. Compromising is going against principles that you've set in stone, that you set in a mental stone to carry out until you decide to, until basically you're not here anymore, until you perish. If you have it in your head, I will never do this. I will never. That's a principle that you live by. That's a principle that you stand on with all that you have. And then you face some sort of adversity. You go through trials and tribulations, and you go against that. You backslide, and you go against that. Well, then you've compromised. You've broke the principles that you stand on, the principles that make you a man, the principles that make you a woman. You've gone against that. You've compromised. And in the business world, it's just as detrimental as it is just in the social world. You know what I'm saying? Not only will your manhood be destroyed if people in the business world see that you've done that, or your womanhood be destroyed, but also more or less your business endeavors are pretty much crushed, because once somebody realizes that they can be a lion, or they could be a tiger or a shark, whatever adjective you want to use, any sort of predator, the wolf, and you're just a sheep, you're just a gazelle, you're just a seal, or whatever the case may be. Once people realize that you're prey and that you compromise when you face adversity, you're basically you're making provisions for people to constantly do that an innumerable amount of times. They're going to get into a continuity of basically forcing you into a corner until you compromise, so that they can get the outcome that they desire to have. You know what I'm saying? So with all that being said, man, you have to be watchful, and you have to establish principles. And after establishing those principles, you have to stand on them no matter what. If you're risking losing your entire company, so be it. If you're risking losing freedom out of your life, going to facing incarceration, so be it. You have to be willing to die, literally, for the principles that you stand on as a man and or a woman. not and or. You can't be both, which I'll talk about that later. But the principles that you stand on as a man or a woman, you cannot go against those principles. You have to be willing to die for your manhood. You have to be willing to die for your womanhood. Um, and just try to give one example in the business world. Um, let's say, it's hard to say, man. It's so many different scenarios. But let's just say in the business world, you wanted to get into real estate, and you said, no matter what, I made a vow to myself for whatever reason, I would never get into the restaurant business. My father died, and he pleaded, and I promised him that I would never get into the restaurant business. That's a principle that you've established mentally. You know what I'm saying? That's a principle that you live by. And if one day real estate isn't doing quite as well as it should be, and you decide to go into the restaurant business, guess what? You've gone against those principles that you set against yourself. You've compromised. You didn't negotiate. You compromised. You went against the principles that help individualize yourself. You've compromised, and that's a no-no. Once you go down the road of I almost said compromisation. Once you go down the world of compromising, it's almost no turning back because you've damaged your manhood. But if you have already done something similar to that, or you're thinking in your head something that you've done, and it's kind of sounding like what I'm saying, it's not unrepairable. You can still come back to the good side. You know what I'm saying? But you really need to work on those principles and make sure that you stand on them and you're willing to die for those principles. This applies socially. This applies financially, the business world, politically, whatever the case may be. You have to stand on those principles, no matter what you face, no matter what kind of adversity you face. You have to stand on those principles. But yeah, this one's only about 7 minutes, man. I appreciate y'all watching. No compromise. You can negotiate, but no compromising. Appreciate y'all watching. 12 Keys to Success.